Salute, Nick family. Welcome to the Queen's Court. I'm your host, Stephanie, aka Queen, Dope Soul Sports Talk. Here, my weekly spot on the Queen's Court, where it all started. Got a lot to talk about. Knicks went 2-2 since we were last here. I was hoping for 4-0. We'll talk about that. Brunson has missed a few games. We'll talk about that and his impact on the team. McBride and Grimes have actually looked good. We'll talk about that as well. We'll talk about Hartenstein. Is he having a good run, as someone said to me recently, or is this who he is and who we can count on him to be for the rest of the season? We'll talk about last week's games. We'll talk about the slate of games coming up and everything else in between. Let me bring in the panel. All right. Jeff, Dope Soul Sports Talk, Simeon Russell, the creator of the channel, and Tony Crow, Knicks and Bruises. How's everybody doing?
Feel good.
Peace, peace, Queen. Welcome. Pleasure to be back.
Yeah. I'm just gonna run down. First, let me just get to the MBK family of shows, just so everybody knows what we do around here before we get into last week's games. There we go. All right, this is the MBK family of shows, pregame, postgame, and the shoot around with Simeon Russell, the creator of the channel, the NBA wrap up with Ron of Still Nick fans, the controversy with Josh, aka Uncle Fulio, the Losers Lounge with yours truly here on the show today, Tony Crow, Knicks and Bruises, live shows and videos by International Andy, Queen's Court with yours truly, Stephanie of Dope Soul Sports Talk, special programming and events again by Simeon Russell. I'm just going to head right into the team snapshot. Since we were last, the Knicks are now 23-17. We are 2-2 since we were here last week. We are now in 7th place in the Eastern Conference. We've lost one game. Our offensive rating is 9th on the season, 17th over the last 4 games. Defensive rating, 12th overall, 2nd in the last 4 games. Our net rating is 9th on the season and 5th in the last 4 games. We played Portland, Dallas, Memphis, Orlando. We beat Portland 112-84. Anunoby had 23 points. Hartenstein had 14 rebounds. We shot relatively well on splits of 41.6, 37.5, and 87%. Dallas, we lost. That was a tough one. I wanted that Dallas game. We lost by 4, 124-128. Randle with 32. Hartenstein with 15 rebounds. Shot well. We've shot excellent actually from the field. 49.4%, 33.3% from 3, 78.6% from the free throw line. Memphis, we pulled it out, but I was expecting us to look a bit better than we did. We played without Brunson. We looked raggedy in that first half, but we was able to pull it out 106-94. Randle had 24 points. Hartenstein with 22 rebounds. Our team splits 48.2, 34.2, and only 68.4%. I really thought the Knicks had turned the corner since the trade at the free throw line. On these last 2 games, not that great. And today, Orlando, a disheartening loss. We had a call on the last show post game, made me feel bad. Like maybe maybe the Knicks was going in the totally opposite direction. I'm like, we won 5 in a row. I think it was 6 of our last 7. Nick family, we're gonna be okay. McBride led us in scoring today with 20. Hartenstein with 12 rebounds. Hartenstein really holding us down rebounding wise, but I think we still need a bit more. We'll talk about that. I think we've been out rebounded the last 2 games. Our splits today, 39.8%, 32.5, and 68.2. Just not good at all. Let me bring the panel back in, and I'll ask the usual question. Who or what stood out for you over this 2 week? We're going to go with Sim first, Jeff.
That's fine with me. He's a lot smarter than I am. I'll sit and listen.
I don't know about that one, but I mean, for me, it's obviously the absence of Jalen Brunson over the last 2 games. I mean, we scored. What did we score against Memphis?
104.
104, right?
106 and 94 today.
Yeah, 106 and 94 today. Like those are, those numbers aren't encouraging. You know, we, we're not moving the ball the same without Brunson. We don't have that guy that's gonna, he and Randle both, command a lot of attention. So you're missing a guy that commands that kind of attention. So that's been the biggest standout over the last 2 games. They no Brunson, no Brunson. And it just shows you how valuable he is to this basketball team, like most stars are to the basketball team. I mean, you take Giannis off of Milwaukee, they're gonna struggle, right? Um, look at Memphis without John Morant. You know what I mean? Most teams are gonna be like that, but it just shows you you would like to have a strong enough team where if one of your big guys goes down, you can win games like today. So I think that's
Yeah,
what
yeah,
people say. You need that other guy.
yeah, yeah. What do you think? It sounds like it seems to me that Randall has gotten real cozy now playing off the ball, right? Because usually in the absence of a point guard, he would kind of go back to his kind of point forward role. Do you think we've seen the last of that?
It's a good question.
I think he's still creating though. You know what I mean? It's really, we might see him bring the ball up the floor a little bit less.
Right.
Recently, but I think as far as his creating for others, I think he's still doing that. You know what I mean? So
Right.
to me, it's a blessing more than a hindrance.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. Um, yeah, I just wonder, would we be better when we don't have Brunson running the offense more through Randall, more inside out? I'm not saying we would be. I'm just wondering if. Um,
I also think because he's off ball a little bit more, I think that's opened up more opportunities for him in a sense. Let me rephrase that. I think it made it gives the defense less opportunities to hone in on him. I mean, they're still gonna do that, but because he's moving so much and he doesn't have the ball as much, I think it gives him a little bit more freedom to kind of find his spots quicker and less time for double teams to come.
right.
If they're not coming quick, I think it's his advantage.
Jeff, who went? Sim, you want to say something else?
No, go ahead, Jeff.
Jeff, who
Uh,
and what stood out for you this week?
the lack of playmaker is what stood out to me. Deuce is shooting the ball great, but he's not a facilitator. He's not getting us into our offensive sets quickly. I think you really saw it today. It looked like it took us maybe 10 seconds before we even got into the actions that we're normally getting into right away. And I think that's one of the things that Brunson does for us that's kind of underrated. So that really stood out for me. And then so when you have less time to go through through your stuff, if you're starting much later, and so you get more late shot clock shots, you get uh, just not as good an offense. And Deuce has shot the ball lights out, but I think he had 1 assist today, and that and so to me that says he's more of an off guard, in a point guard's body than he is an actual point guard. And so I think if anything, this stretch of games right here says that other move to bring in somebody else, there's got to be a little bit of a sense of urgency there. I really think that we need a stabilizer, whether it be Alec Burks, whether it be Terry Rozier, whether it be Malcolm Brogdon, even DeJounte Murray. They need someone with that kind of a skill set in here desperately. And it's not meant as a slight to Deuce, but he doesn't have the skill set that we need, and neither does Grimes. And Grimes was a disaster against Memphis, and he was okay today, but he wasn't, he wasn't part of the solution in the, especially, I mean, you got to score more than 16 points in the fourth quarter. I mean, this is not 1993 Patrick Ewing era Knicks. That's what today's fourth quarter reminded me of.
How much of well, I'll let Tony go and then I'll ask this question.
All right, I'll try to be as quick as possible. My answer is Hartenstein, but to deep dive a little bit, it's two things. One, what I said, piggybacking off of Jeff, that margin of error. You know what I mean? I knew we got better after the trade, but I felt like that margin of error was smaller. Now we see with Brunson's absence and no one to replace Quickly's production is really hindered us today in particular. Another thing that I said before the trade when Mitchell Robinson went out, one of my concerns was iHeart and him being in foul trouble. Now, granted, we haven't seen that up until today. Today was the first time he kind of was in foul trouble, and I think that really hindered us. If you look back at his performance, not just this week, but the past 2 weeks, maybe even going back to just since Mitchell Robinson's been gone, he's been having like career highs in such category every game. You know what I mean, and exceeding it. He's just been playing phenomenal, but his minutes are up increasingly. We don't really have an adequate replacement for him in the second unit, and or if he gets in foul trouble like tonight, where you know what I mean. I think had he played his normal 30 something minutes, you know what I mean, he may have been. We may have pulled that game out just because of his intangibles and what he does on the floor. So Hartenstein's still the guy for me back to back weeks, but those concerns about our margin of error and our backup point and center position, it's I mean that's part of that margin of error for me.
Any surprise that Sims has just not I mean, when we came into the season, I think we all felt good about the center
Hmm.
position. That if somebody went down, Hartenstein would move into the rotation, or even if he didn't start, he would play the most minutes. Sims would kind of, back him up whether he started or not. And now Sims is nowhere to be found. Um, are you surprised at all?
I think part of that is not. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm speculating, but I think for me, part of it is Tibbs not wanting to really utilize both Deuce and Sims in
Mhm.
prominent roles. You know what I mean? If you kind of really think about it, I think when Sims was inserted, Deuce's role was minimal. Now, granted, Quickly was still here. We didn't make that trade yet, but I feel like the same way you have those questions about Deuce, and even though he's playing great, and Sims had played great during stretches, you know what I mean. I think a couple things. Him being in the starting lineup, uh, he it was one thing to fill in temporarily, but once we knew Mitch was gone, that was going to be a full-time job. He wasn't suitable for that. And then now with Hartenstein being playing as great as he is, do you really want to have Sims and Deuce in that second unit as prominent, prominent roles in that second unit? I think Precious probably has a little bit more experience, a little bit more usage and things from his past than Sims. So I think that's part of it. But I'm still shocked about it. Like that's the only reason. That's the only conclusion I could come up with, because I was gonna actually ask that earlier on MBK.
Jeff, are you surprised at all?
I guess what I'm surprised at is that when Sims has seen the court, he's looked bad. Like, I think that's the reason that we're not seeing a lot of Sims, is that when Sims was on the court, it's like, where's Waldo? He's not. He just isn't being impactful, and I think that wasn't true a year ago. I think when he came in, and I don't know what the difference is necessarily, but I think last year when he came in, everyone was like, wow, he's really doing a good job. And I remember some conversations where a bunch of people were like, get rid of Mitch. We've got Sims. He's younger, he's cheaper, and all of these sorts of things. And then, you
Mhm.
know, we're just not seeing like anything from him like when he was in there. Now I don't know if that's because he was inserted in the starting role and just wasn't ready for that, but he started last year, so that really doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I kind of thought maybe just get now that I start as a thing, just put him in that backup role and see how he does. We can stagger the minutes if you're worried about having he and Deuce on the floor at the same time. We don't really need, we could, if he can just give us 12, 14 minutes, I think everybody would be thrilled with that. So, you can stagger the lineups where you don't have he and Deuce on the floor at the same time if that is an issue, which I think it was a great observation by Tony. So, but yeah, I'm just stunned at his lack of productivity when he's been in the lineup. I expected him to be a better player than that.
Yeah, yeah. Which player would you spotlight, or do you want to spotlight for their impact on winning this past week, this 2-4 week? Who's your spotlight player? Tony, Jeff, then we'll come around to Sim.
I gotta ponder.
All
My off the top of my head, I'm sticking with Hartenstein. So
Okay.
I'll go with Hartenstein.
Okay. And why?
I mean, he's just been phenomenal. What's the thing Wally was talking about, or Alan Hahn was talking about? Stocks, steals and blocks.
Mhm.
He's been number 2. He's been number 1 since the trade. I think he's
Mhm.
number 2 in the league. And I mean, I think it's gonna be a question of can he make an all defensive team if he continues the
Wow.
numbers at this rate. I mean, they said he's the only one averaging 2 blocks and 2 steals in the new year. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
Right. Let me ask you this, because somebody put this to me in a conversation earlier in the week. Do you think Hartenstein is just having a good run, or do you think this is who he is?
I think it's who he is because I think it's always been about opportunity. Like even if you went back to the Clippers, I think, and I'm not a big component of per 36, but I think if you just utilize that, his per 36 always said he could be this productive. You know what I mean? His per 36, even on his team with Mitchell Robinson, said he could be this productive. So I think it's really just about now him getting the opportunity and him utilizing it, taking advantage of it.
Okay. Jeff, which player would you spotlight? Do you want to spotlight for their impact on winning this week? Basically, your MVP.
It's got to be OG
Player of the week.
Anunoby for me.
Okay.
It's got to be OG for me. I think he's like plus 115 or something ridiculous like that. Since I don't know what he did today, I didn't look at the box score for today's game, but his impact on the defensive end is palpable. I mean, it's obvious, to have an all defensive player and like that, and he hasn't had, you can't work on him for what he's not. I mean, he's not going to replace what Quickly or even Barrett did. That's not his game, in my opinion. But I think he contributes enough on the offensive end. I love how active he is when he doesn't have the ball in his hands. I think he does a great job of cutting. I mean, he's a good corner 3-point shooter. There's no question about that. But he's not just parking himself there and waiting for the ball. He's a guy who's going to cut without the ball. He can make good passes in there when he does get it. He's not afraid to make a good pass. So I love what OG brings to this team. I think he's the skeleton key. He's the perfect plug-in piece. He's the wing that we've been looking for. And if everybody else is healthy, I think an upgrade at the 2 spot, and we're really dangerous. But we've got to get Brunson healthy, man. Whew.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like a long-term injury, right? Doesn't sound like it's. Yeah, I think we'll be okay. Sim, who would you spotlight for their impact on winning this week?
I mean, first of all, I agree with both Hartenstein and
Yeah,
OG.
yeah.
How can you go wrong? But I'd also like to mention Dante DiVincenzo because, he's been shooting the ball on fire. You know what I mean? The
Yeah.
last 4 games he's shooting 35.1% from 3. It feels like it's better than that.
That's
Probably
it?
today's game, you know, it feels like he's shooting better than that though. You know what I mean? Um, but just his ability to cut off the ball, knock down open threes when the ball is kicked out to him, get steals, rebounds, consistently hustling. He comes up with a lot of little plays that, help to propel the Knicks forward. I feel, you know what I mean? Whenever he shoots it, I feel like it's going in.
Yeah,
He gets an open three, I feel like it's going down.
yeah.
So I've definitely been impressed by his play. He's averaging over the last 4 games, he's averaging 15 points per game. He's been the 3rd leading scorer on the team, over the last 4 games. He's not the guy that is going to be, you know, that you're relying on to create shots for you. Like we're saying, we need a guy, but you just feel confident. He's gonna knock down shots.
Yeah,
He's gonna come up with some big plays when you need him to.
yeah. No doubt about it. When you hear um, panel members say we need an upgrade at the 2, do you see that as a knock on DiVincenzo or just the way this team is structured right now in terms of just needing, somebody else on the ball? That's just the only spot left, so to
Right.
speak.
I think it's that. I don't think it's a knock on DiVincenzo. It's kind of like that's the only spot. I mean, you just traded for OG. He's coming in and he's doing what he, was brought here to do. 3 and D. So I think that's what it is. That's the spot. Now, can you get a guy and convince that person to come off the bench? That could work too. If you have a guy that can facilitate for you and get some things done, because you can always sub that person in
Mhm.
if you need him on the court. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I think that's like the logical spot that you would think needs if there's going to be a spot in that lineup that needs an upgrade. That's probably the logical spot.
Mhm.
A guy that can create a little more than DiVincenzo because he creates, but it's normally off the kick out when he's attacking closeouts. Every once in a while, he'll be able to break down the defense and get a bucket. Get to the basket. But I still think you need a guy that is okay with being the third wheel, but can go get it done if you absolutely need him.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, my sentiments exactly. It's not even about DiVincenzo. I was banging the table. I can't tell you how early in the season to see him at the 2 position, and he's been really good for our starting for this starting lineup. Um, you could just count on him to hit a 3. When it comes to him, just like you said, Sam, I just believe it's going down, you know?
Yep.
Um, but it's just Brunson and Randle, in my opinion, is just not enough. Like we need somebody. Like had we traded for, let's say, a Brandon Ingram or Levine or somebody like that, then you can keep DiVincenzo. You got that guy, that third guy who can get you a bucket. You can keep DiVincenzo. But because we traded for an OG who kind of allows the game to come to him, and he's not somebody you would throw the ball to and be like, we need a basket right now. They're doubling Randall. Brunson is, they're slowing him down or whatever. But because OG is not that guy, and you're not going to be able to get an Embiid or a Joker,
Right.
the 2 position is the only one to really upgrade if you're talking championship contender. And listen, when we had the show, there were a lot of fans, a lot of those in the chat, some who called in who believed that this starting unit had a championship ceiling. I wasn't one of them, but they believed that leave the starting unit alone. This starting unit can win a championship. just shore up the bench, you know. Um, yeah, I wasn't.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm not sold on that right
I'm
now.
not sold on that too either. For me, I think the spotlight player for me that contributed to winning. Um, and you're right. There's so many you could pick. I would have to double down on Hartenstein. He's just been phenomenal, and I don't know if it's him or OG being here or a combination of both. But since OG's been here, he's looked even better. And maybe part of that is he hasn't had to contend with so much leakage, into the key. Um, with the better perimeter defense, he's killing on the boards. We're getting shot blocking. It's been sometimes I look at the key and it's so open. Like if you just stare at the key, you would think the game didn't even start yet. Like that's how open the key is. And part of that is him, and then obviously um DiVincenzo. But I'm gonna ask you the same, you and Jeff and Sim, the same question I asked Tony. Do you think he's having a good run, or do you think this is who he is? He's just gotten more time and gotten his footing under him, and like this is who he is. Sim?
I think this is who he is. You know what I mean? Because I think even moments when Mitch, if Mitch missed a game or Mitch had to sit on the bench, he came in and did the same thing on the glass. He didn't get as many minutes, so he wasn't gobbling up as many rebounds, but I would say the rebounding rate was the same,
Mhm.
right? He's just got a big, strong body so he can throw his body around. He's always been active, ever since he's been on the team. You can see he was active. He can pass the basketball. You seen him find OG today on a backdoor cut,
Mhm.
right? I think this is just him, and he's going to have big rebounding nights, especially if he's playing 44 minutes. He's going to have big rebounding nights. But yeah, I think it's him. I don't think it's going to pass. I think we're going to continue to see him playing, grabbing double-digit rebounds every night.
Yeah, Jeff.
I definitely think this is who he is, because I think even Thibodeau said, when Robinson was healthy, he's like, Mitch is playing out of his mind great, but I want to get this guy on the floor too. We knew he couldn't play him on the floor together, but even by he's like, this guy deserves, starters minutes, even if they're not available right now, and just kind of bide your time and wait. And sure enough, Mitch gets hurt, and he just, what's impressive to me is how he's handled the increased minutes load. And it's like, I feel like he doesn't get tired. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just he's relentless every second he's in the game, and I love that about him. I really do. I definitely think this is who he is. I think that low key, one of the best moves that this front office has made was bringing him in on that kind of a value contract, because right now he's, for what he's being paid as a starting center, that's as good a contract as there is in the league. And man, that guy is doing the job for us.
No doubt about it. Do you think he's a starting center? Because I do hear some who say that he's still a backup. Do you think he's a starting center in this league?
Yes, absolutely. I think he's a starting center. I mean, if he's not a starting center, what is the definition of a starting center? Because he's, his stocks are off the charts right now. He's rebounding at a high rate. He does a great job distributing the ball on offense, which a lot of centers can't do. He kind of, if you squint your eyes a little bit, he kind of reminds you of Noah when Thibodeau had those Bulls teams.
Mm.
He has that similar kind of contribution, I think, that Joakim Noah had on those Derrick Rose teams, and that were so successful. I mean, I just feel like he plugs in perfectly, and I just think that if you're saying he's not a starting caliber player, you're just hating on him. I mean, everything that we've seen from him is that this is a really good player.
Yeah.
Sam?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think he's a starting caliber player. I know he's probably not going to be in your top 5 centers or anything like that, but there's 30 teams across the league, and I think for any team that doesn't have a top 10 center, he probably can come in and fight for a starting position. Yeah, I definitely think he's a starting center in the NBA.
Yeah. Tone?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have 2 starting caliber centers on our team. One just happens to be injured right now. And yeah, great point by Jeff, because Thibodeau's been saying it all year. They both deserve. What I mean? They both deserve to play. They both deserve the minutes. So yeah, definitely starting caliber.
All right. Let's get back to these past 2 weeks. I mean, this past week, 2-2. What do you think is going on right now? Do you think this is just simply Brunson is injured? Do you think we're still, I think reeling is a strong word. We're still trying to get our footing, with that second unit, without IQ and RJ. Because remember, RJ was a starter, but he ran a lot with that second unit. So what do you think the 2-2 week was about?
I mean, I really think it boils down to Brunson. I really do. I mean, when you look at it, if you think about it, Deuce is in for Brunson, right? Deuce is a better defender than Brunson. Brunson is a better offensive player all the way around. And when you look at the way the team is trending over the last 2 games, right? They gave up how many points to Memphis?
106.
106. They gave up 106 points.
No, they gave up 94.
Gave up 94 to Memphis. They beat them 106-94.
Right.
They only gave up 98 tonight.
Right.
But then they only scored 106 and they only scored 94.
Right.
And then and because Deuce is a better defender than Brunson, right? So you add that to the lineup, but then you take away the offense. You add the offense, you add Brunson, and maybe those opposing teams maybe score a little bit more, but the Knicks greatly outscore them now, right?
Yeah, no doubt.
You know what I mean? And it's not just the points that he's getting, but the kickouts that he's able to get to other teammates. Obviously, he runs some with the second unit as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So all of those things, I think, make a difference. So yeah, I'm really pointing to Brunson.
And also, Sim, he changes the defense. When he's out there, they have to run a different defensive strategy than when Deuce is out there.
Yep.
Maybe everybody just stays at home. And that also makes it difficult for us to get the looks that we look. I think we underestimate the gravity of Randle and the double team and the gravity of Brunson just being on the court. No matter what he's doing, he's going to get some water. They got 2 people over there with him.
Right. And you can see with Deuce when if he's trying to get past somebody, sometimes he's going horizontal, dribbling the ball. You know what I'm saying? Side to side, trying to get past, and they got 1 defender on him. You know what I'm saying? He just doesn't have the shiftiness that Brunson has, which, like you said, allows everyone else to stay on. With Brunson, he'll 1 or 2 moves, crafty enough to get past. Now the defense got to collapse, and now it's when you start seeing those, open shooters and guys cut to the basket, all of those things.
To me, I think it goes. I don't think it has anything to do with Brunson at all. To be honest. Now, granted, if Brunson was here tonight, I think we win hands down. But I think we should have won without him. I think what it really boils down to is, I don't know if you want to call it taking your foot off the gas or taking teams lightly. But that Dallas game, I think they got a sigh of relief when they heard Luka was out. And I think they got off to a very slow start and had to fight all the way back. So you know what I mean. That lack of focus in starting that game, and tonight they was just lethargic. What's the word?
Lethargic.
Lethargic. All night. You know what I mean? Like, and they even with that. I mean, we were right there. We should have won it. We had the lead in the fourth quarter. I think in those two particular games, I think it boiled down to like the losses, a lack of focus. Because as you see, we really should have won this one, and if we didn't get down so bad early against Dallas, I think we get that one too. You know what I mean, and it changes the whole dynamic.
I agree. I agree. I think Brunson changes the lack of focus, though. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what it is when you talk about being that leader. I think he changes the lack of focus. And even against Dallas, we scored 124. You know what I mean?
Right.
20 points more than we've scored in either 20 plus points more than we scored in either one of these games. But I think he changes the focus. Yeah.
Yeah. And he closes for us. And we needed a closer tonight. We needed, particularly with Randle being off, and his ankle may have had something, to do with it. Jeff?
Yeah, that's the key thing there. I mean, we just didn't have anybody reliable that we could go to in that fourth quarter, and it was killer. I mean, I'm also kind of disappointed in Josh Hart's production the last couple of games. I really feel like he's been a letdown, and not getting quality minutes from him is not helping matters any. Not that he's going to be the scoring answer that we need, but that he's certainly not providing what he provided last year when he got here. And these last couple games in particular. But I agree with Sim, and it goes back to I think teams are pretty comfortable. Like if Deuce is going to be our leading scorer, I think teams are perfectly okay with that. Like if he's going to get 20 on 17 shots, that's fate. That's great. We don't care. He's not breaking down a defense. He can't get by his man off the dribble. That's just not his game. Now, he's not quick enough. He is just not in his bag. And so, and frankly, we don't really have anybody else who does that consistently either with Brunson out of the lineup. I mean, that's not really Dante's game either. He'd be the closest one, though, I would say, out of everybody else. And it's when you have Randle shooting 5 of 18, Randle can do some of those things, but he couldn't do them tonight, And I blame the Dallas Cowboys because I think he and his son went down there to watch that playoff game instead of staying up here in New York. But I'm joking about that last part, of course. He'd do what he wanted on his off days. But no, and if, it was almost like we were without both of our best players today, and that really makes it tough. I mean, so I don't think that's a permanent state of affairs. Get Brunson healthy, get Randle healthy for that matter. But also, I think you hit the nail on the head earlier. Randle kind of got used to being in that off the ball role, and he got comfortable there, and because that's where he fits best. That's that's where you maximize his skill set, and so he's going from that to kind of being asked to be everything again. And let's not lose sight of the fact that Orlando Magic team is a very good defensive team. Yeah. So it's kind of like reminiscent to me of the Atlanta Hawks playoff series a couple years ago. They're like, let's just shut down Julius, make life difficult for him. And they have Banchero, who does a great job anyway. And so let's make his life miserable. And then if somebody else beats us, they beat us. And, Anunoby had a decent game, but again, that's not his game either. You're not going to see that and we gave up 2 guys who can fill in that role a little bit. And Barrett, not my favorite thing from him, but he had a lot of gravity. He was good at getting to the rim, even if he wasn't a finisher there. He'd get to the line, get you those extra foul shots, and he was making them like we didn't do tonight. So, and then quickly is exactly, the backup point guard whenever Brunson was out last year, quickly came in and did what he's doing in Toronto right now. So, it's as much a matter of circumstances or anything. I don't think it's time to hit the panic button. It's just disappointing to see, especially after you felt like we were really like the trade happened and we just kind of put it together. And then, it's like that first quarter in the Dallas game just kind of slammed the brakes on everything. And a couple people went out the window, through the windshield. And so, plenty of time to get it back. There's not, and like I said, we just got to get healthy as much as anything. But to me, it highlights the need to pull the trigger on that move. Because even with Brunson healthy, I think that's a need for this team. So
I agree. Shout out to Willie Cox, and he'll help us in our segue. We also held them under 100 points tonight, under 100 tonight. Defense was good. We have no playmakers out there. Our whole bench are off the ball players. Even our starting lineup, outside of Randle and Brunson, are off the ball players. So I think that's the answer to Keith Turner. I don't understand y'all logic when it comes to upgrades for the starting unit. And that's the logic. We need, or at least I believe we need, one more person that can create. If Brunson is out of a game, if they take him out of the game, in the sense of wearing him down, doubling him, same thing with Randle, crowding him, and who else do we have? And rest assured, that's what's going to happen in the playoffs. Or at least that's what they're going to attempt to do in the playoffs. But I want to do two things. I'm trying to see which one I want to do first. I have some questions about the bench, but I also want to revisit OG now that he's played how many games now? 6, 7? If not
7?
more?
Yeah, 7.
All right.
7.
Okay, so he's played 7 games. So
No,
let's
it's 6 and 2.
8. So it's 8.
8. Okay.
Wow,
All right.
it's 8. Okay.
Something like that.
All right. So let's revisit OG now after 8 games. Is he who you thought he would be? Is he more, less? And by less, I don't mean less of a player, but brought less than you thought he did. Just your thoughts on OG now after 8 games. Tony?
Everything I knew we were getting from him, he's delivered on. Now the parts that I was hopeful of, I've come to the realization that we're not gonna get creation from him. You know what I mean? I thought maybe that was something that was in his arsenal and just wasn't tapped into yet. If that's the case, we're probably not gonna see that this year. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. Let me ask you this though. Today he took a few shots off the dribble. Drove to the basket from the baseline, extended. Do you think that this is a matter of him not knowing the plays, not being comfortable in the offense, or do you think that he may flash that and do that from time to time, but that's not really part of his game?
I won't say it's not. I think he's capable, but his thing is probably gonna be, like Tibbs always says, the game is gonna dictate it. He's not gonna take the initiative to go ahead and say, all right, I gotta go create. But if something opens up, he'll be able to read it, see it, react to it, and attempt it at the very least. So I don't think he's bashful in that sense, because his IQ will dictate for him to make certain reads. But just like as far as taking an initiative, yeah, I don't think we'll see that from him.
Okay. Sam?
Yeah, I agree with everything Tony just said. I expected him to be a good defender, knock down threes. I can see why people would always say, he has the potential to go up another level, because when you see him, when he does at times try to create, it looks good, right? It looks as if he has the skill set to do so, and he just needs to develop it. But I just don't think he's. I don't think he's going to. I think this is the player that you have. He might get, more consistent with the three if you can. I think he might find some more. The Knicks might find some more areas for him to get the ball, like cutting to the basket, curling, some of those things. But I think, we're still going to have a guy that's 15 to 17 points per game, plays defense. I think that's who the Knicks have, and I think that's who he is. You know what I mean? Which is cool. I think, if they feel like, that's the fit that you needed on this team, a guy that's going to play his role and play it really, really well. That's good. He doesn't have to be the guy that's the star, or, if you need it, you can get him in another way, or, bring somebody else in. But he's definitely a piece that if the Knicks, extend him or whatever, is going to be, starting at that spot for a long time because of his defense, and he can shoot the basketball, but I don't expect for him to be creating much anytime soon.
Right. Jeff?
I agree with both Tony and Sim, and I think it's one of those things. It's kind of like we saw with Quentin Grimes. I don't think I think when you have these initiators, they just have this alpha dog aggressiveness about their nature, where that's just part of your DNA. I haven't really seen that from him. His basketball IQ was off the charts. So he's gonna make the right basketball play, and sometimes he'll see some things, and because he sees the advantage, he'll take the mismatch, as Tony said. But I don't think it's in his DNA to just say, "Here's the ball, go get a bucket." That's that. I don't think that's who he is, and that's perfectly fine. I kind of envision him being for us. He plays a different role, but how Draymond Green was kind of an essential piece to the Warriors championships. I kind of view him in a similar manner. I think that he's never going to be the superstar, but he's going to do enough of all of the little things, and he's going to be the anchor for that defense on the perimeter that this team sorely needs, so that we can bring in that other piece, whether it be Donovan Mitchell or who knows. We've talked about the names ad nauseum. I don't think we need to go through it again right now. Well, we can if you want to, but I think he allows you to bring in someone who's maybe not as good a defender, even, and have he and Jalen and out there and be comfortable with it, just because he does so much, and he's such a lockdown defender, so he's the type of player I love. So I'm really a fan of him. I didn't really watch him a whole bunch. If I'm being honest, I didn't watch a lot of Raptors games. So, most of what I knew about him, I got from people like you and from Tony and from Sim, who were fans of his game. And so I said, well, these people know what they're talking about, so I'm going to trust their opinion. And now seeing him in a Knick uniform has kind of confirmed all of those things that I've heard about him for a long time. And I just think he's a really good piece to this puzzle.
Yeah, I think you guys brought up a good point that I didn't even think about. It's not necessarily the skill set as much as it is the attitude, because he can, you've seen him put the ball on the floor, pull up for a jumper. You see him drive, baseline, either take the shot or set somebody up. But again, the game dictates what he does. He's not going to force anything. So it's more about his attitude. And not that his attitude is wrong. It's more about his approach to the game, more so than it is his skill set. That's actually a very good point. So he is he a third option? And so the question is, do you see a third option as your third offensive option? Can he be your third best player and not be your third option? Can he be your third and not be your third best offensive player?
I think so. I think a player can be your third best player, but not be your best, third best offensive player. You know what I mean? Because you can have an offensive player that just plays zero defense and is terrible on defense, but this guy can get you, you know, can get you 20 points, by going one-on-one. But on the other side of the floor, his player is going to also give you 20.
Right.
Where, OG, will give you 15 or 17, but maybe lock down the other guy. So I think he can be that third best player, but you still need a third best offensive player.
Yeah.
I think you still need that with this team.
Yeah. Because to Jeff's point with Golden State, you can argue that Draymond was the third best player on that team behind Clay and Steph, but he might not have been. I don't know who was though. Maybe Wiggins, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. We're talking pre or post Durant.
Yeah,
Pre or post,
right.
yeah.
I mean, obviously, when KD was there, well, I guess he wasn't the third best player then, but yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can. You just got to find a guy that can. It's about putting the puzzle pieces together. Find a guy that can do the things offensively that you need, and is at least decent defensively.
Wow. So so Keith, do you think this is his ceiling? Do you think he has to grow into this, or you think this is who he is right now? Because I don't see this right now. OG is a dog offensively as well. He can get you 20 to 25 points a game if need be. I think he can get you 20 points a game, but I think if the game flows that way.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Exactly.
If the game flows that way. He ain't going out getting.
He ain't gonna be like, yo, I'm getting 20 tonight before the game. That has to be, you know what I mean? It's like Tim says, the game will dictate when he's gonna have 20
right,
and when he's not.
right.
It's not gonna be him dictating it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I really think of him like a Ben Wallace type, though. To answer your question, Ben Wallace was the Detroit Pistons don't win a championship without Ben Wallace, but Ben Wallace was not a great offensive player, but he didn't have to be because they had Rasheed, they had Billups, they had Hamilton. They had enough other guys. So to me, he's kind of our Ben Wallace. I know he's not a 5, but he's, I think that he provides similar things and he can beat you there if you need, he's not a guy you can just leave open. Or he can, because he can shoot it from 3. So, so he's a threat. So he's not Mitchell Robinson out there where he's great defensively and he doesn't bring you anything on offense. That's not who he is. He's a knockdown shooter from the corners, especially. So, even if he's just doing that, I mean, if he's the quintessential 3-and-D player, that's fantastic. I mean, that's awesome. Was it Bruce Bowen on the Spurs? Locked down their best defender, and you couldn't leave him open from 3. He would kill you. So those kind of players are parts of championship teams. So that's why I'm excited about him. Not that I don't think he'll ever be in an all-star conversation. I don't think that's who he is, but I don't think he needs to be our all-star. I think he needs to be exactly who he is.
Right. I think he's 3-and-D plus though. Because I don't think he's just gonna stand out. Like he can put the ball on the floor. He can
Agreed.
I use the word create loosely in the sense that as he's driving to the basket, if they rotate over, he knows how to make just really fundamentally sound.
Agreed.
So I think he's 3-and-D plus, I would say.
I like that.
Yeah. And that's why I say, where when people always say, well, he hasn't reached his potential, or there's another level offensively he can go. I think that's what they see, right? They see that he can do some of those things, but he doesn't do it enough, or he doesn't take the initiative to, let me see if I can get mine now. You know what I mean? But you see that he has some ability to do it, but the mindset is probably everything.
Right. like even today, I thought I'm not gonna say forced it in the sense that that the opportunity wasn't there, but he was being super aggressive, and sometimes he would fall down, or
Yeah.
sometimes the ball, and it was like,
I thought
yeah,
about that falling when I seen him fall down today. I was like, man, this is about the third time I've seen him fall down in a
yeah,
game when he's driving to the basket.
yeah. He doesn't have the power
Yeah.
on the drives. He doesn't have the power. He doesn't. Yeah, that's not the power game. Is not his game. But I'm happy with him. Even his defense, I don't think is elite just yet. I've seen. Well, listen, you're not gonna be great on every single possession. I still think he's coming into his own defensively as well. Not overall. We know who he is overall. I mean, on this team, I think in these individual matchups. Anything else on OG over these um eight games? All right, so let's move on to the bench. Um, Josh Hart looking mad regular to me. On the bench unit, McBride and Grimes as of late has looked really good, both offensively and defensively. So let's just start with McBride. I know we talked about him a little bit. Given how well he's played of late, how comfortable are you with him being the backup point guard for the Knicks going forward for the rest of the season?
I'll say this: the more I watch, the more he plays, the more he's showing his development, showing what he can do. The more comfortable I am. If we don't make the move at his position per se, because it's also not the only position of need. You know what I mean? So it does make me wonder what is the most important position of need. Can we bring somebody in who's not necessarily a point guard, but who could still give us what we need that Deuce isn't capable of? You know what I mean? Or is that backup center that important that we don't look at, upgrade at the guard position? So I'll say that, but I'm not sold yet. Definitely not sold yet.
Okay. All right. Anybody else want to comment?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sold that he's going to be the guy doing that. You know, he's making shots. Yeah, a couple of drives to the basket. But it's the I don't know. He still has a lot to learn, and he just hasn't had the playing time in the NBA to learn it. You know what I mean? So I think he still has a lot to learn. The good thing is that the constant is defense.
Right.
And if you can find a way to stagger your lineups or do whatever you have to do, he's going to give you defense and hustle. And now he's knocking down the three. So,
Right.
you know what I mean? Unfortunately, that might mean more minutes for Brunson, though. Because up until Brunson's injury, Deuce was getting like 10 minutes a game.
Right.
So now you're looking at, Brunson getting those 38 to 40 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. I I like. I think the Knicks still need to bring in a backup point guard. However, I like the fact that Tibbs at least feels comfortable, enough to let him start and run the team, even if he's not there yet. Because remember before, whenever he was in, he was playing off the ball,
Right.
off of Quickly, off of Brunson, off of, whoever. So he's developed enough that they feel comfortable starting him and putting him on the ball. I just feel like the Knicks are a little further along right now in terms of being a perennial playoff team on the brink of championship contention if they're not there already. And I just think we need a backup point guard that's a little further ahead than Deuce. Um, right now. So it's almost like if this was where if he was playing like this 2 years ago when the Knicks were more in development mode. Remember all of those shows about, should we develop? Should we try to win? If he was playing like this, then he would be right squarely there. I just feel like the team has moved
Right.
since that time, and he still needs a little more development, particularly if we're talking about the playoffs. Because the playoffs I've seen the playoff neutralize players with experience. So I think that's the concern there. Jeff, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I'll just say this. First of all, I apologize, but my power just went out and came back on. This cold weather's just killing us down here. It's
Y'all ain't used to it. They close down
no.
everything for 1 inch of snow, don't they?
I know. Plus, we live in the country, so internet will go down in a heartbeat. But what I'll say about Deuce is this: I think you can expect that his role be commensurate with his contract. And so if you look at what he got paid, $4 million a season?
Yeah.
I think that about tells you all you need to know about what to expect from him. What do you expect from a $4 million a year player? Probably that he's just a little bit more than situational, right? Now he may be forced into a little bit larger role right now just because we don't have anybody else, but I think that the front office is looking for somebody else, and let's not make it. I think they like Deuce, and I think that they think that he can continue to improve and develop. But I'm not one of those who thinks development necessarily continues on the court, right? I think he's a guy who's very valuable in practice because of the defense that he plays. Like if Jalen Brunson is having to, get past him in practice, that's good for Jalen Brunson's game, right? Because he's a terrific defender, right? So you have that aspect, and I think his shooting is coming along. He's one of those shooters where his shot doesn't necessarily look like it's going to go in just based on the rotation, but seems to be working for him right now. And so hopefully that continues, knock on all the wood, right? But so from that aspect, he had 20 points tonight, but he took a lot of shots. So, I don't know that he's not afraid to soak up usage. We know that. Like he's not shy about taking shots, which that's good, but he's not a playmaker in any stretch of the imagination. He's not a guy who can get past his man off the dribble. And so from that point, that just makes him a very limited player.
Yeah. I think the Knicks, very good points. I think the Knicks know what need to happen. And we've been talking about this for years. Wanting a more experienced, backup point guard. Even when Quickly was here, I wanted to have a number 3 with a bit more experience in case one of them couldn't play. Same question for Grimes. He's been playing well, as of late. I haven't checked the numbers, but whenever he shoots, it seems to be going in. Actually, and seems much more aggressive. How comfortable are you with him as the backup shooting guard, including the playoffs?
I think we can't stand pat at all the positions. I'll say that, right? We gotta have to upgrade somewhere. We don't gotta upgrade everyone, right? You know what I mean? So if we're rocking with Deuce, then maybe we gotta have to upgrade that 2 spot, whether it's in the starting or the bench. You know what I mean? If we're rocking with Grimes, maybe we gotta upgrade that 1 spot. I just wanted to add that real quick, Queen. I gotta get out of here.
Okay.
Always a pleasure. Sim, I'll see you tomorrow. Jeff, always a pleasure as well.
Yes, sir.
Shout out to the chat. Support the channel, bro. We demonetize. We'll be trying to get back by the end of the month.
My little band.
Hopefully.
There we go.
All right. I appreciate y'all.
All right.
Thanks.
Appreciate.
All right,
Good job.
Tony.
And I guess Tony brings up a good point, because we got that 5 spot, that backup 5 spot, as well. But we can finish on with Grimes. But if you want to add, like, out of those 3 spots, if you had to pick 2, 1, 2, and 5,
Hmm.
in the backup, which 2 would you feel is a must?
I mean, I think getting a guard can fill some of the 1 and the 2 if you get the right person.
That's
Yeah,
true.
so I think I would, I'd go that route.
Yeah.
Especially if you really feel it's bad, there's probably enough veteran centers that you can pay the vet minimum to that can
Yes.
be serviceable in that backup spot out there on the market somewhere.
Yeah. I'm in agreement. If we can get a backup point guard and a backup 5, I'm happy.
Yeah.
Because in the playoffs, Tibbs might go to 7. If he has might go to 7. A token 8, or the 8 person get like 10, minutes or so. But I think having somebody to back up Hartenstein if he gets into foul trouble is critical. And having somebody to back up Brunson, because you don't want Brunson in foul trouble or whatever's happening in the playoffs, and there's nobody with experience like that. That impacts the game, impacts our ability to win. And I think the same thing with Hartenstein. If he goes down and Mitch isn't back, like we already saw in the Dallas game, we couldn't get rebounds at the end of the game. And I don't know if it was tonight or it was the same thing, difficulty securing rebounds.
Yeah, we had excuse me. In the 4th quarter, I think we had some difficulty securing a couple of rebounds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and I think that the one thing that is with backcourt players, there's so much positional versatility now. You can get a combo guard, right, who'll serve the purpose. I mean, and and be able to do both things. I think the problem right now is that Deuce isn't really a combo guard. He's a shooting guard in a point guard's body, right? And so, and Grimes isn't a combo guard either, right? He's a shooting guard whose confidence is a little bit light at the moment. Let's just put it that way. And from that standpoint, I'm not really trusting Grimes right now. I'm kind of disappointed with him. I kind of thought he would be the player to naturally take the step up, but I think his confidence is just not there right now. And I think he will be a really good player. I'm just not sure if he's going to be a really good player on this team, because kind of like with RJ, I kind of feel like the timeline has moved up. And you were saying this about Deuce, but I think it's kind of true about Grimes as well. I think that we as a team right now would be much better served if we had a guy who could, whether it be maybe even better than DiVincenzo, so we can slide DiVincenzo to the bench, you know what I mean, and run with the second unit and run with Hart. I like that idea. I'm obviously assuming that Grimes is going to be the cost of doing business. I'd almost be more comfortable with that, especially when you're talking about in the playoffs, having someone who is battle tested and you can depend on, and is ready to go and isn't going to shrink when the lights get really bright. I mean, I don't think Grimes is at the place right now where, with what this team needs, that he's really a big part of the solution.
Yeah. I'm a little concerned you know, regular season, I'm concerned about the backup point guard position. Playoffs, I'm concerned all around. I've just seen, I mean, just look, we don't even need to look any further than last year, where the intensity of the playoffs, and some would argue Bam Adebayo, wiped out half the team. You know what I mean? By the time we got to the sixth game, we were down to Brunson. You know, so I do think you need players with experience, um, in that second unit. We'll see how it goes. I don't think the front office is finished. I think they did know that our bench would be depleted with RJ and IQ gone. And I think it's something that they're working on. I didn't get a chance to make a slide, but anything else about the bench? And I should say the bench has dipped in scoring. I think we were either top 10, top half with RJ and Quickly, and now we're like bottom 3 or something.
Yeah, well, I'd like to say one other thing, and that's I'd like to see us get some utilization from the Fournier money, right? We're paying Fournier $18 million a year to not do a blasted thing. And I'm not saying he's going to do anything here. He's on the outs, whatever. Okay, let's use that contract and get someone in here who's going to actually be productive and can crack our 9-man rotation. Well, it doesn't even necessarily have to be at the guard spot. Like, you know, if you can use part of that and you can get, someone as a productive 5 in here, okay. But, we have $18 million just I mean, he's literally just wasting away on the bench, not doing anything. So that's just not a good use of assets. I mean, so from my standpoint, like if we're going to improve this team, and the stance from the coach is that we're not going to play Fournier, let's get Fournier out of here and let's get someone in here, because right now I think our bench is bad. Like, and I've been saying this for a little bit now. I don't think we have a very good bench. Like our starting unit with the plus minus numbers is through the roof, and our bench is not. And so, I've even before we traded Quickly, I thought we could use an upgrade on the bench. And so now, without Quickly, who was kind of, that's where the scoring was on the bench. And so we didn't really, we traded Quickly and we brought in Achua, who's not gonna give you any points. So it's not a huge, and then, Deuce got inserted as a starting lineup, so he's not even giving you any scoring off the bench. And Grimes has been too inconsistent, and he's had a game or two that's been good but for the most part, if you look at his game log, 5-6 points, not very many shots. I think that's pretty consistent. So, this bench needs to be bolstered for sure. And, Brogdon, again, Rozier, somebody who can, not just get his, but also, unlock some of those other guys and get them involved. Get Josh Hart playing like Josh Hart again. But yeah, we definitely need an upgrade on this bench.
Yeah, Rozier, that's a new name, Sam. What you think about him?
Yeah, Terry Rozier. I mean, I don't know what his contract looks like, but he's obviously a guy that can, he'll play some defense. He can handle the ball. He can go to the basket. I think he'll be okay coming off the bench. He's been a guy that's come off the bench before, and he may have the same, the right mentality for Tom Thibodeau. I wouldn't mind Terry Rozier.
Yeah, and he's a big shot maker as well. He's not going to shrink from the moment at all.
No, not at all. I mean, I definitely wouldn't mind having Terry Rozier on this team.
Yeah, Tony mentioned that they may buy out Hayward. Are you a Hayward fan, even on a buyout market?
I don't know. I'm not sure. I mean, I don't know. I'd be afraid that he'd end up like Fournier. Does he defend enough for Tom Thibodeau?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That'd be my question. I know he can cut to the basket. He can shoot the ball. He can do more things than Fournier can offensively. But does he play defense? And will Tom Thibodeau play him if he's not playing defense?
Yeah. When we signed Fournier, and will he be healthy? I called him a poor man's Hayward. That's what I call Fournier, because Hayward is just, he contributes in a lot of different areas, but he's slower now. He's almost a power forward.
Right. Right.
Yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. That's exactly right.
So I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, off the buyout market, you're not giving up a lot of money. It's cheap, but
Get what you pay for, though.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I think with Fournier, the Knicks may have to re-sign him because if they can't move him by the trade deadline, you have to pick up that option.
See
Yeah.
what they can
I
have.
would think. Yeah,
Because you can't replace that money. In other words, if they don't pick up the option, we're still in the same salary situation that we were. So you're better off picking up the contract and hopes that you can move it. I mean, it's still only one more year, so it's not like, but it stings for Evan because, he deserves a chance to play. I'll just put it that way. I'm not an Evan Fournier fan, but he deserves it. He deserves to be on the court at least a little bit.
Right.
Like, not here. I don't want to see him in our lineup, but somewhere.
But you know what now? You got OG, you got iHeart playing better, on the on the defensive end. Right now we have Deuce, because Brunson is out. I don't see why you can't give Fournier some minutes right now. I think you have a strong defensive team around him.
That's true.
It's worth a look.
I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think it's gonna happen.
Either. I don't think, it's not gonna happen.
Yeah. I don't think it's gonna happen. Tom Thibodeau. I forgot to make a slide for Tom Thibodeau. 500th career win as a head coach. I have to say head coach because the last caller, on the post game show, I had to remind him he has 500 wins. Shout out to NBIC. Just your thoughts on Tom Thibodeau picking up his 500th career win. I think he's the fourth active coach with 500 wins.
Yeah, it's not easy getting wins in the NBA. I mean, look at how many coaches come into the NBA and get dismissed and never coach in the NBA again. Head coaches we're talking about. It's not easy to go out and get wins in the league, much less 500 wins. That's a lot of wins. Obviously, there's a lot of years of coaching there, but he's a good basketball coach, and he's a guy that can continue to learn. But I think he's a really good basketball coach.
Yeah. Jeff?
I'm a fan of Tom. It's funny. I think that the one thing that Tom's missing is that championship, right? That's what's missing from his resume. Other than that, he's there. I mean, he checks off all the other boxes, and so I think of all of the coaches with 500 career wins, he's probably the only one who hasn't been to the NBA Finals. So I mean, let's fix that. But I like Thibodeau. I think a lot of the criticism is unfair when it comes to him. I think he's a lot better of an offensive mind than a lot of Knicks fans give him credit for. I think that what the Knicks do is actually kind of pretty smart. And so I don't think he gets a lot of. I think he gets a lot more criticism than he does credit. Like when we're on an 8-game win streak or whatever, or when we're winning 5 in a row, nobody's saying, "Oh, look at the job Tom's doing." It's all, "Oh, Julius this and Jalen that." And if we lose 2 in a row, man. It's on Tibbs. So, but that's part of it. I like the stability that he brings. Good coaches are hard to come by, and he's won 500 games and he hasn't always had the best talent either. So I think that he deserves a lot of credit for that too. But I like Tom Thibodeau. Good for him getting 500 career wins. Let's get him to 1,000. That's what I'm saying on the Knicks bench.
Ah,
A lot of people complain about, his adjustments, and every coach has their way. Some coaches can look at the game and make on the fly adjustments. Some coaches, like Tom Thibodeau, needs to look at the tape and say, okay, what did we do? Everyone's gonna have what their preference is. You know what I mean? A guy like, what's his face down there in Miami, Spoelstra, he probably has, he was a former video guy, right? So he probably has, when he goes into a game, 3 or 4 adjustments set for, whatever he's looking, whatever type of defense he's playing or offense he's doing. When the team adjusts, he probably already has one in tow. But Tom Thibodeau he's a little bit different. It's kind of like, okay, let me go look and see what they did, and then I'm going to adjust again. I guess that would be one of the main complaints that people have about Thibodeau is the adjustments. But the way that he sets up standards, the consistency, guys know, as much as people don't like it, and sometimes I don't like it, I think it does help, especially young players when, okay, I'm going in 6 minutes left in the first quarter. It's my time to go in, right? So now I'm mentally prepared to go in the game, and I'm coming out at this time. You know what I mean? And with Tom Thibodeau, no matter what you're doing on the court, you're coming out at that time. You could have hit 20 points in a row. You're coming out at that time. You know what I'm saying? So I think that type of structure and consistency and discipline helps, especially young players. And then what we don't know is, and this is with any coach, people talk about adjustments, but the adjustments that you would make, or that you think you might see needs to happen in a game, how much does he believe his team can do it on the fly? Right? Because I know with my girls right now, we're very young, and there are certain things that I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to do that, because I just don't think they can comprehend what I'm asking them to do. You know what I'm saying? And you never know if he feels that way about certain players that's on the court or whatever with the team, So.
yeah.
And one other thing I'll say about Tom is that Tom Thibodeau's floor is a lot of our other coaches' ceilings. Like his worst season as a Knicks coach is 37 wins. How many years in a row did we have 32, 30, 28, 17? You know what I'm saying? So you get a floor level of competency there with Thibodeau, like him or hate him. That there's a baseline of competence there that to me is worthy of respect.
Yeah, no doubt. And I
Yeah,
see
no,
Greg. Oh, I'm
ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead, Sim.
Greg said, so Tom has only made it into one conference finals, and he's in retirement age, and you guys have your hopes up for him. I'd like to ask Greg, how many NBA coaches never made it to a conference finals or never made it to a playoff? How many NBA? I guarantee you there's way more coaches that never made it to a conference finals, right? That were just fly-by-night coaches in the NBA. To accomplish 500 career wins, to make it to a conference final, those are, good, those are strong things on his resume. I mean, we want to add, no hate towards Johnny Bryant. We got Knicks fans that want to add Johnny Bryant, who's never even been a head coach. You don't know what he can really do. We just know that he has a good relationship with players, which a lot of assistant coaches do, because that's kind of the hierarchy in coaching, right? The head coach is the disciplinarian, and the assistant coaches are the guy that say, hey, listen, don't worry about it. Let's do this. Let's do that. You know what I'm saying? And the assistant coaches are the coaches that the players entrust sometimes in how they're feeling and stuff like that. Happens like that from middle school all the way up to professional basketball. But you don't know if Johnny Bryant is actually going to be a great coach in the NBA. You don't. Tom Thibodeau, the proof is in the pudding. It's there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Shout out to him. I'm a Tom Thibodeau fan as well, and I think part of it is just coaches in general. When we say he doesn't make adjustments, I hear that as for a lot of, first of all, I think some fans just say it. Like if you were to ask them, like, give me a specific adjustment in the game that he didn't make, um, there's a lot of fans who wouldn't even be able to tell you that. So I think it's just become something that, that fans say. And I think the other thing is that coaching isn't black or white.
Right.
There isn't an adjustment every coach would make in that same situation.
Yep.
Different coaches have different philosophies, and that philosophy plus whatever is going on in the game is going to impact that decision. So you can have three coaches in the same situation make three different adjustments. And I think that's something that a lot of us don't understand. We just feel like, oh, we lost the game, we didn't make an adjustment. We should have, we should have did this. Different coaches make different, adjustments. So Tom Thibodeau has his philosophy. I don't always agree with it, what he does. I don't always understand what he does, but I always say to myself, he's working with factors and variables that I'm not even aware of that's
Right.
going into his decision.
Yep.
I'm looking at the game from the outside. I see 2 or 3 variables.
Yep.
He's on the inside. He sees 6, 7, 8, 10 variables that's going into the decision that he makes. And we'll say he's not flexible. Listen, what we see as inflexibility is the coach's philosophy.
Right. Exactly.
If your philosophy is 9 players, then it does seem kind of inflexible when you don't go to 10. If your philosophy is, I don't care if a player is hot or not, I want to keep my rotations intact. At this time that you're coming out, I want my players to know, feel comfortable. This is when you're coming in. This is when you're coming out. That's my philosophy. On the outside, he's inflexible. Look at this guy. He's on fire. Let him stay in. He's being inflexible. That's his philosophy. Coaches are entitled to their philosophies, but we may see it as inflexibility. So listen, rosters matter.
Yeah.
Mike Malone lost, I can't tell you how many times in the first round for Denver.
Exactly.
But the management thought he was a good coach and they stuck with him. They could have they had every right to fire him after I don't know how many times losing in the first round. Rosters matter.
Yep.
Rosters matter. So when you talk about Tom Thibodeau only been to one conference, look at the roster of his team and look at the rosters of the team he lost to. Now, if you can consistently say, yo, you had the better team and you lost, that's a totally different story than somebody not getting to a finals and they didn't have the best team.
Right.
It's totally different story. So kudos to Tom Thibodeau.
Yeah.
I'm happy he's here. I don't agree or understand everything he does.
Yeah. Steph,
know?
I just like to give just a little example about the variable.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
I had this player one time. We were playing in the league, a summer league, and every game, his first shot would be a 3, no matter what. No matter what, first shot would be a 3. And I told him, I said, listen, your first shot can't always be a 3 because you're taking them. It don't matter if the defense is on you, this or that. I said, I need you to go to the basket for your first shot of the game. If I see you pull a 3 your first shot of the game, I'm pulling you out. The very next game, we get out there, we come down, boom, he pulls a 3 and knocks it down. Right? I send sub to the table, go get him, pull him out the game. I'm pretty sure there were people like, he just knocked down a 3. Why'd you knock him down? People on the outside. But they don't know what I was trying to teach him, right? Because of the trends that he's shown. You know what I'm saying? There are always variables like that you don't know when it's going into coaching. Obviously, that's on a high school level, it's a professional level, but there's still variables like that when it goes into coaching and making decisions. I just seen, I think it was the coolest asked me, if my team was up 30, would I take my starters out? Actually, I think that's kind of an unfair question when you're talking about high school players. You know what I'm saying? Because in high school, I might keep some of my starters in if I'm trying to work on something. You know what I'm saying? If I want them, if we beat a team that isn't very good, but I want them to learn that, I might tell them, go out there, I need you to make 10 passes before you shoot the ball. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't like that you're doing this, that, and the third. I might keep them in. Now in the NBA, that's something different, right? Hopefully you're not teaching your players those type of things. So, my answer would be, yeah, I could keep them in. You know what I'm saying? But that may not exactly apply to the NBA. You know what I mean? If I was Tom Thibodeau and I'm up 30, I'd take the guys out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But on a high school level, I might keep them in depending on what I'm trying to teach them.
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt about it. Yeah, I mean, listen, Tom Thibodeau is going to be Carmelo Anthony, Patrick Ewing. He's going to be that person that we're not going to appreciate until he's gone. And then we'll be like, wow, remember we used to complain about Tom Thibodeau? Look at this clown.
Yep. Right. So we get another Fizdale.
Right. So shout out to him. Listen, rosters matter. Rosters matter.
No doubt.
We get championship contending. Look at Boston. Somebody brought this up in the chat too, that they have a championship contending roster. It's been like 6 years already, and they haven't won with a championship contending roster. So listen, you need the roster, but other teams have contending rosters as well. It's not the easiest thing to win the championship for sure. All right. Let's just get into next week's games and then we can get out of here. All right. So we play the Rockets Wednesday, Washington Thursday, Toronto Saturday, and I believe all three of these games are at home. All three of these teams are under 500. The Rockets are 19-20, Washington 7-31, and Toronto 15-21. But don't let that fool you. RJ and Quick is coming back in the Garden, and if the Knicks come out sluggish like they did tonight, they're getting blown out, period. Because not only is RJ and Quick going to play well, the rest of their teammates is going to play well as also because they know how important this game is to them.
Yep.
The Rockets are on a 2-game losing streak. Washington won their last game. Toronto was on a 3-game losing streak. I hope they get a win before they play us Saturday. We haven't played the Rockets this year. We're 2-0 against Washington and 2-0 against Toronto. When I saw that, I was like, we've played Toronto twice already. I think both games was in December, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So we're 2-0. Offensively, Toronto's the best of the bunch. They're ranked 15th over the course of a season, but their team has changed. I actually didn't run the numbers now that RJ and Quick is there. So this is for the entire season. 15th, Washington 25th, the Rockets 21st. Defensive rating. The Rockets are a really good defensive team on the season. I don't know how they're doing as of late. Washington 30th, Toronto 21st. And net rating, the Rockets are, almost there in the top, the top half. Just thoughts on these 3 games. I feel like after having lost to Orlando, we need all 3 of them. But thoughts on these games coming up?
Yeah, I feel like we need all 3 of them. Yeah. We got to get those 3 games. 3 teams below 500. I know Toronto's going to come in. RJ and IQ, they're going to be pumped. The crowd is going to give them a nice ovation. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like they're going to catch boos or anything like that when they're in the Garden. They might even, get some cheers when they get the ball in the game. You know what I mean? So they're going to be pumped up to play. Yeah. To prove to Tom Thibodeau, to the front office, whoever, that you should have kept me. Hopefully the Knicks players are going to be pumped up to play against them too. But that's gonna. I think that's gonna be a tough one to get.
Yeah.
Houston defensively, they're tough. Hopefully Brunson is playing, but I'm expecting the Knicks to win all 3.
Yeah, me too, Jeff.
I think it depends on health. I think
That's
if Brunson misses the Houston game, I don't think you can pencil that in anything in. Especially after the performance we saw in the fourth quarter tonight. But we have all hands on deck. I think we'll have a 3-0 week, but the Washington is second game of a back-to-back. Those always scare me. I don't know why. I always, I don't know if they're on on one too, but those, and especially against a bad team, the way that we're not really taking care of business right now, but that's just who I am as a fan. I'm not always the most confident. And I just want to see us, let's take one game at a time. Let's get this one and then move on to the next one. But I agree with you guys. 3-0 week. Let's get back on track. Let's take care of our home court. Like I remember in the Patrick Ewing era, teams didn't come into the Garden and get a win. Nowadays, it seems like, I don't know, people they play their best at the Garden and they just come in here and we just don't take care of our home court. So I'd really like us to show that we're going to protect our house and get some wins, especially on this stretch where we've got, I think over the next 13 games, I think we're 14 games. We don't leave the state of New York for 13 of them or something like that, because we have a road game in Brooklyn in that thing. So we've got, but we were a better road team than we were a home team last year. So, I'd really like to see us take care of business on our home court, and, but Jalen Brunson's health is going to be the key. And Randle's too, for that matter, because I think he's instrumental as well. I think if we're healthy, we'll see the results that we want. But if JB doesn't play, all bets are off. I can't predict what this team's going to do if he's not on the floor.
Sam.
Yeah, I agree. If Jalen Brunson isn't on the floor, it's going to make it, that much more tougher for the Knicks to win. Maybe this is a good thing in disguise, right? So that they learn how to play a little bit more without Jalen Brunson, and get that chemistry together, for later on during the season. You know what I mean? Yeah, and then of course with Randle, if his ankle, who knows? I don't think it's serious, but hopefully, his ankle's not too serious, and they're like, oh yeah, we got to rest both of them. You know what I mean? If you're resting both Randle and Brunson, then ain't no way we're beating Houston, in my opinion. If we're resting both of those guys, But all things being healthy, we should get all three.
Yeah. I meant to bring this up really quick, just the projected lineups, just to get a sense. Houston, Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Jabari Smith Jr., and Alperen Sengun, who's having basically an all-star season. Washington, Tyus Jones, Jordan Poole, Deni Avdija. Hope I got that right. Kyle Kuzma, Daniel Gafford, who the Knicks were connected with. In Toronto, Emmanuel Quickley, Gary Trent Jr. sometimes. Dennis Schroeder starts. Scotty Barnes, Pascal Siakam if he's not traded by then, and Jacob Portal. So if we don't have Brunson, it's not even not having Brunson scoring. It just changes the dynamics. It changes more than just we're missing scoring. We don't get the easier shots, and then we have to play players more minutes than they're accustomed to,
Right.
and expect more out of them. So I agree with you. If Brunson is out,
even if he's healthy, Fred VanVleet has always been Jalen Brunson's kryptonite. Like, VanVleet gives Brunson fits. I don't know why, but he sees Jalen and he gives Brunson a hard time. So even if Brunson is healthy, that Houston matchup may be difficult.
But when you say he gives him a hard time, meaning he doesn't shoot as well, or he just makes it hard for him, and he's still,
All of the above. He cooks him on offense, and he just bothers him on defense too. He's real pesky when it comes to Jalen Brunson. Some of Jalen's worst games are against Freddie Van Vliet. Going back to his days with the Raptors. I mean, so yeah, that. But again, if Jalen's in the lineup, I feel a lot better. Even if he's not having a great day, just because even just the threat, right? That's what we were missing today is just that threat and that ability to break down a defense. And we need him bad, that's for sure. But let's get some wins up here.
Yeah, 3-0 with Brunson, 2-1 without him. I said it. Knicks, I need you to step up. And I need Randle the beast. I no doubt in my mind, the entire team will be ready for Toronto. Whether they can pull it out, I don't think we got to worry about lethargy, lack of urgency. That's not going to be the issue. Yeah. Let me just see. This was coming into this game where the Knicks are in the Eastern Conference. The Knicks right now are 7th, 23-17. This Eastern Conference is a beast. Right here. Look at Cleveland, who has been without Mobley, been without Garland. I don't know if Garland is back, and had missed actually some time without Donovan Mitchell. But look at 22-15, Miami 23-16, Indiana 23-16, New York 23-17, Orlando 22-18. I mean, 1 or 2 wins, you're in 4th place. Another 2 losses, you're in 8th place.
Yep.
This is how tight it's going to be, a game of inches.
Right.
Going down the stretch. Any comments on the Eastern Conference before we get out of here?
It's just tough, man. It's tough. That's why these games are so important. Like, tonight's game, so important. You got to take care of those wins. You can't afford to lose to, if you consider yourself top 14, you can't be losing to Orlando and Indiana and that. If you consider yourself there, you got to get those wins because it's too tight.
Yeah. And then also the tiebreakers.
Yeah.
When you're losing to Orlando, like you was mentioning early, I don't know if we play Orlando 2 or 3 times 3 or 4 times this season. Tiebreakers may be a factor if you look at how close the teams are right now.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what makes today hurt so much. It's just not just how it went down, but who it went down to.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
You had a chance. I mean, you had control of the game in the 4th.
Yeah.
You're up, 72-59 or something like that at one point. I was feeling pretty good about it at that point, and then
I was doing the slides. I had penciled in a win. I had to go back and change. I had to go back and change the slides up. Anyway, any last words before we get out of here?
No.
Yeah, I'd just like to say thank you for having me on the show. Sim, it's always a pleasure and an honor to be on here with you. I love the empire that you're building, and I hope to just be a brick in the wall for it. I think you're a genius. I love the channel that you have and the content that you create, and the team that you put together is really impressive, and I'm just very humbled to get to be a part of it. It's quite an honor for me, and I love it every time. And Queen, you're just phenomenal at what you do. I appreciate you so much for giving me the opportunity to be up here with y'all, and the chat. You guys are incredible. You really make this show and this experience something special. So I'm very grateful and appreciative for all the time that I get to talk about this basketball team with you guys. So it's very humbling, and it's a lot of fun.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. I just want to bring up the MBK family of shows again. Pre-game, every Knick game, well, for the most part, unless it's an emergency. But usually pre-game, post-game, the shoot around with Simeon Russell, the creator of the channel. NBA wrap-up Thursdays with Ron and John of with Ron of Still Knick Fans. The controversy pop-up shows with Josh, aka Uncle Fulio, the Losers Round Lounge. After every win, check out what the losing team's fans have to say with Tony Crow of Knicks and Bruisers. Pop-up shows and videos by International Andy, Queen's Court with yours truly of Dope Soul Sports Talk. Check me out over there on Fridays now because the Knicks have a lot of games on Thursday, so we've moved the weekly show to Friday. And special programming and events by Sim and Russell, the creator of the channel. Sim, you want to say anything about the demonetizing and supporting the channel?
Yeah, you know, I think everybody knows, but yep, we've been demonetized. Next Monday, I can reapply. So hopefully all goes well.
Yeah.
Then it could take another 30 days or something like that. So
to get the approval?
It could. Yeah, that's what they said. It could. Normally, they've gone way faster than that, but
Yeah,
it could.
they have.
Yeah. Yeah. And Jeff, man, if I was a genius, I mean, I would hope that I would have been rich by now.
One doesn't have anything to do with the other.
Shout out to the chat. Appreciate you rocking with us. Until next time.